Ah, right up in that corner. Excellent, perfect. I'll hand over to you.
No worries. So Denzien is a Wellington-based distillery. We're one of the urban distilleries in New Zealand. So we're set up straight in the heart of Wellington. And we did that to provide a sense of experimentation and constant sort of feedback that we can get from our customers. But the gin that you're trying tonight will be the Te Aro Dry Gin, which is the first gin that we started off with. It's a London dry style gin. We've injected a bit of New Zealandness into it by using horopito and kawakawa, as well as pushing really strongly on the juniper and finishing off with double citrus. It has quite a punchy pepper taste to the gin with a lovely resinous pine finish and also the presence of coriander as well. Makes it quite a versatile gin, allowing it to be used in gin and tonics, classic cocktails, or anything citrus fronted. We're really excited about having the Te Aro Dry Gin. It sort of allowed us to have a strong base while working on some of our more experimental. It's also one of my favorite gins to just have by itself due to quite a slow rate of distillation, which creates a quite smooth gin. So I personally enjoy it with a couple of rocks, but also beautiful with tonic. It's a great thing having Denzien being in the center of Wellington, having people just constantly walking in. We're straight in the middle of Lombard Lane, which is just off on Manners Street. So we often have city passersby stopping through and saying, oh, I was going to catch up sometime, I was going to see you. And we always eventually pull them in, and people just walking through. Domestic tourism has been a huge change for us recently, having people come to Wellington, and a lot of people want to see something new. We have Brewtown going on in Upper Hutt, and it's quite cool being able to bring that experience to the centre of Wellington. So back to our gin, we often recommend with garnishing that it is paired with either lemon, orange, or grapefruit. Lime has a funny reaction with it. I know Kiwis love to put a bit of lime in their gin, but we often recommend those three just because of their innate relationship that's already in our botanicals. What you'll see behind me is our beautiful Kota still, which we use in our distillations. We do a pot maceration style, so everything goes into the pot, our water, our botanicals, and our ethanol. It's really cool because we use Wellington's rainwater supplies, but we run it through a process known as reverse osmosis to remove just about everything that the city puts into the water mains that would otherwise purify it for general drinking use. It creates this interesting water that ultimately has almost no flavor and actually is kind of dangerous if you were to drink it by itself because it just grabs onto everything else. The interesting thing is I'm sitting in this shelter at the moment because when we set up the distillery, the council was a little miffed in a sense that we were ultimately storing 92% alcohol in the center of the city, and they weren't such a big fan of having such a fire risk. So a question we receive all the time is, how much did the still cost? It's one of the 3 golden rules of questions we never answer, because the embarrassing truth of the matter is the little shelter that's built around it is actually more expensive. It can be on fire for 4 hours and has what I would ultimately describe as blast doors around it, which makes it kind of interesting, always having that question. We've currently just run a distillation today, so I'm reevaluating my choice, despite the scenery of sitting in here, because it is very hot. We're still dealing with that residual temperature, and we just ran a run of Te Aro Dry, so we'll often spend a whole day sorting that out, but at the same time, having customers able to come in and see our gin and talk about it, all the while having the smell floating through the air.
Cool, very good.
If anyone was after any questions, can answer any about the distillery or our gin themselves.
Yeah, which tonic do you suggest?
We suggest East Imperial Burma Tonic. It's a great sort of tonic to mix with just about any gin. We like it because it's quite soft. It has that light sweetness as well. it's definitely our go-to, but other suggestions I would often make would be East Imperial Old World Tonic, or the Yuzu Tonic as well, as quite an interesting character to it.
Yeah, you can definitely taste, like tasting it neat first, you can definitely taste the peppery spice, like the hojitu really gives it, I really like that character in it. It's really cool. Yeah,
so we chose to use a different ratio in a sense of Horopito has, yeah, of course, that punchy spice to it, whereas Kawakawa has, I would sort of describe it as a sense of, not like peppermint, but it has a much more sort of complex flavor to it. And we decided to push forward on the sharpness as well to sort of cut through. It makes the gin stand out, and that having that really smooth base spirit as well allows it to sort of have those distinct features across the sort of the palate.
Cool. And how did you get into making gin? What made you start doing this?
So I am one of the distillers. How I personally got into it was I started off as the bartender for Denzien, and ultimately spent a couple of years nudging the owner, Mark, consistently in the side saying, when are you going to teach me? When can I get involved? Mark himself, actually, so this is the owner of Denzien, he got involved in the distillation process by wanting to run an urban vineyard. That, of course, is not exactly the most feasible option in the world. So he chose another great opportunity, being distillation. To complete that course, to sort of learn everything he could, he went over to Chicago to study at Curval. They run distillation workshops and really intensive sort of training sessions, which sort of developed the passion. It was actually originally a consultation that he was involved with, learning about gin, and ultimately got a bit lost in the craft, and decided that the thing that he wanted to do was create this urban center of distillation. Cool.
Cool, very good. So fantastic, love the gin. And fantastic to have someone from Wellington with our tasting tonight. We've actually got a number of our Wellington team who I see have jumped on as well, which is great.
Awesome.
Yeah. They're very, very proud of your gin. They keep reminding me of that. Just before we move off your gin and on to the next one, has anyone got any questions they'd like asked at this stage? You've got everyone quite quiet. This is good. Well, they're quiet, obviously, because I muted them. But no, that's cool. Very good. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And love your gin. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Cool. So what we're going to do next is we're going to jump across the ditch to 4 Pillars. And I think we have the team there now. If you'd like to, it's Lizzie, isn't it? Yeah, Lizzie, if you'd like to unmute yourself there. And actually, just as we do bring you on, Lizzie, just with regards to Denzien, we just have had a comment through saying no comments, but it's very tasty. So, which is cool, great stuff. So now moving across the ditch to 4 Pillars, and welcome, Lizzie. Daylight savings is a tad annoying, isn't it?
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. It is indeed. Thank you so much for having us today, though. I hope you're all keeping well. I've jumped on today to talk about our newest gin, which is very exciting.
Cool. Well, we'll let you, so this is the first, so we go back a gin, guys, to the olive leaf gin. And Lizzie, if you want to just take us through the story of 4 Pillars and olive leaf in particular, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So our 4 Pillars started in 2013. We've got 3 beautiful bald leaders, Cam, Matt and Stu, who've all been friends for a very, very long time. And we're in the wine industry before they got into the gin business. We started off with just one still named Wilma and a dream. And that dream was to make a fun and contemporary Australian gin. Nearly 7 years on, we've got multiple beautiful stills, and last year we're awarded the IWSC's Gin Producer of the Year, which was very exciting for us here. And the olive leaf gin, the one we're talking about today, this beautiful little number, is the newest baby in the 4 Pillars range. It's taken about 5 years to get to this stage. We're really, really excited. We've always had really citrus dominant gins like our rare dry or spicy like our spice Negroni, and we've gone for full on savoury flavour with this one. So we start with a really big juniper base for this gin. We want that really heady, piney smell coming through. And then we've got some really gorgeous savoury flavours. So we've gone for some beautiful rosemary, and oh my gosh, in this room, it's just an abundance of beautiful rosemary filling up the space. The olive component to this gin comes in 2 ways. So we're using olive leaf. So we've literally crushed up olive leaves and popped them into the pot. And we've used first press olive oil as well. So Cam went on a little adventure to Cobram Estate to help with the olive harvest last year. The entire time he was walking around the olive groves, all he wanted was a martini, just brushing by the olive leaves with the harvesters going through. That smell filled the air and gave him quite the idea. So he used some of the beautiful first press olive oil in his still as well, which is really fun. We've also got the gorgeous flavours of bay leaves and then lemon myrtle, which the citronelle levels are so high in lemon myrtle, this beautiful native Australian plant. They're actually 6 times more lemony than a lemon. We've also used lemons and grapefruit to create this gorgeous gin.
Hold on. A couple of questions we've got there, Lizzie.
Yep.
Oh, I think we've lost you for a minute. Where have you gone? You're up there. Excellent. What have we got here? We've got someone that we need to mute. We'll mute you in a minute. So, thank you. Okay, so Lizzie, back to you. Just garnishes. What would you garnish it with?
So there's a couple of different fun options. When we're making just a classic G&T, we're going for a Mediterranean style. So I'm using a little bit of rosemary or some lemon to highlight those flavours. The G&T that I wanted to make for you guys today, we're actually using a dirty tonic from the guys at Strange Love. So that gorgeous Cinquenar bar.
We have it here.
Yep, perfect. And then some orange slices and some olives as well. So making a really dirty G&T, just delicious. So our perfect G&T, we always go for about a 1-to-2 ratio of gin to tonic, because if you're using much more than that, you're drowning out the gin far too much. Oh, this is my new obsession, guys. It's so good. Always give the dirty tonic a little bit of a tip over, otherwise you don't get the good stuff in there.
So that dirty tonic's got a little bit of bark and a little bit of cianita in it as well, hasn't it? So real sort of earthy characters.
Oh, absolutely. It's really gorgeous. A little bit of happiness in there as well. Here we go. A couple of olives, a few orange slices, and guaranteed happiness in a glass. So good, so good.
Perfect. Excellent. We've got lots of great comments coming through on how tasty that is. And of course, the other thing that you guys are making, which I just can't get enough of, is your marmalade.
Oh yes, absolutely. So when we're distilling, we're not using dried peel, we're using fresh organic oranges in each of our distillations. And essentially, we vapor infuse those oranges with gin, and we would be absolutely bonkers to get rid of them. So we have repurposed them into marmalade, and we do 2 different kinds, the classic orange or our breakfast Negroni that naturally we add a couple of bottles of Campari into the mix as well.
Yeah. It's really cool. We're very lucky. We've got that in store at the moment, and actually it comes free of charge with one of your bottles of gin, which is perfect.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's exciting. Lots of really good comments coming through here. People saying that, you know, the idea of olive didn't sound particularly pleasant, but it's completely the opposite. And yeah, I agree. It's another comment about just how spicy it is. And yeah, it's definitely got that character. Cool.
Fantastic.
Anyone got any questions of Lizzie about 4 pillars before we move on? No, thank you very much for joining us, Lizzie. And just for, there's a question, where does the tonic come from? That tonic is imported in New Zealand, and we do have it at Glengarry. So, yep, you can get that one from us. So yeah, thank you very much, Lizzie. And we will now move on. And for those tasting, we've just had a couple of questions on, we're moving from one distiller to the next one very quickly. Yeah, we'll be about sort of 10-12 minutes on each distiller, otherwise we'll be here till tomorrow. So thanks, Lizzie, that's very cool. What we're going to do is we're actually going to move to Reid and Reid. So this is, guys, the change in your booklet. So we're not going to do Scapegrace next. We're going to move to Reid and Reid, and I believe, Chris, have we got you ready there with your...
Yep, we're ready.
Yep. Perfect. We'll hand over to you next.
Hey guys, if you hear some weird noises, I've got a baby border collie, so that might explain a few strange sounds. So I started Reid and Reid in 2015 with my brother. My background's in the wine industry. I've been in the wine industry for the last 10 years. And the concept of starting Reid and Reid started when I was working in Burgundy and my brother was based in Edinburgh. He had a few mates that were starting distilleries back then. 1 second, I'm just going to take my dog out.
Always a trick with animals.
Otherwise, he'll annoy you all. So when I was, when we were over there, we got really excited about what was going on with interesting gins in terms of the way of using terroir as an aspect, which has always resonated with me as a winemaker. I really enjoy products with a sense of place. I then got offered a job while I was over in Burgundy to work at Ātarangi as assistant winemaker. So I jumped up on that chance, as you would. But at the same time, we still had this idea that it would be quite cool to start up a small distillery. We were a bit naive in terms of the costings of starting a distillery. But fortunately, we had a shed which had wash down floors and kind of made it quite easy for us to actually start a small distillery. After sort of about 3 years, we quickly realized that gin was actually becoming very popular in New Zealand. And about 2 years ago, we were on the hunt for a new premise. So over the last 2 years, we've been building a new distillery. Our original distillery was about 50 square meters, and now we've built a new 300 square meter distillery and bar. And this has also given us the opportunity to actually grow quite a few of the botanicals in the future. So we've just planted a new citrus grove. We're still in the wine industry as well, so we've just planted a new vineyard. So this has been, yeah, really, really quite exciting for us. Stylistically, I go towards a more savory style on basically all my products, be it wine, be it our vermouth, be it our aperitivos. I am not a huge fan of things that are quite floral. I like the more savory textural components. So the gin you guys are trying is our native gin. This is the gin we first started off with. And the concept behind this was like walking through the New Zealand bush. We wanted a gin that was still a gin. Probably one of our biggest pet peeves. There are a lot of gins on the market that don't taste like gin and shouldn't be marketed as gin because they taste like flavored vodkas. But you also want to bring in some interesting aspects. I used to work at Glengarry's back in 2011, and that actually was something that got me quite interested in gin, was when Brooklady Botanist came out, and I just loved the fact that they were using these sort of botanicals that came from their place as a point of difference. And it really, to me, it struck a nerve with me and made me really excited about what was going on. And conceptually, that's what we really wanted to do. And when we started, there wasn't really a huge amount of gins on the New Zealand market. There's obviously a lot more now. And we were actually about 80% export. So for us, we needed to be kind of having this point of difference and showing something that was really Kiwi was really important to us. So we use kawakawa, manuka, and horopito. We use those three because if you want a business, you can't be using something like lemonwood flower or anything that's kind of seasonal. So the advantage of those botanicals is that we can get them all year round, and to create a product that is to us quite distinctly New Zealand. What I like about those botanicals is they give a more sort of peppery, savoury kind of character. I'm not big on huge citrusy gins. So yeah, that's our story basically.
Oh, and do you know what the alcohol is on this? We've had the question there.
42.
42. Yep. Yeah, so it's got a real spice to it and quite an intense one. Am I right in sort of thinking that something like the cardamom together with the horopito and kawakawa is giving it that character?
Certainly horopito does. Horopito is known as a pepper bush, and same as kawakawa. Kawakawa is a direct relative of black pepper. So you do get that very high tone pepperiness. So potentially, rather than it being the alcohol, it's actually a bit of that pepperiness. Like if you put your nose in a bowl of peppercorns, you're going to get this kind of hit of it'll take you back. So for us, it's important. I didn't want to just pay lip service to native botanicals. They have to show through as being prevalent, but also still taste like a gin. So it's finding that balance between the two.
And you've suggested the Kinafina tonic water?
Yep. I'm very much a purist when it comes to gin and tonics. I don't like flavoured tonic waters. I don't see the point in them. The thing I like about Kina is that it's very clean. I like the fact that it's got a little bit more alleviated bitterness. I see someone said something about garnish. I also hate garnishes. I think they're annoying and they get in the way. It's just something that if I have a gin and tonic, plenty of ice, a good serving of gin, and just a neutral tonic, so you can actually taste what we've made rather than masking it with all these kind of different flavors. Completely different if I was having a martini, because I like a little bit more citrus in a martini rather than a dirty martini. But yeah, as a gin and tonic, I just keep it clean and neat, and nothing to kind of get in the way of the flavors that we're trying to express. So,
Cool. It's really really interesting because Kinafina, some lovely Glengarry connection there with an ex-staff member as well. And I remember when he was researching that and working for us at the same time, and your story tied in there as well. It's great. We often say, I think we train most of the industry.
I'm pretty sure Sam as well also worked there as well. So there you go.
Yeah, it's good. Small industry, and
But keep it that way.
Cool. And
Cheers,
we've got some lovely comments coming through there, and one that said that you've got a cellar door opening.
Yeah, our first weekend was last weekend. We're just doing tours at the moment, and then hopefully in December we can get our bar up and running. So it's been really exciting.
And it looks like your parents have been flying and sitting next to people and selling your gin. So it's obviously a family affair. Yes,
yep. Cheap labour.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing that with us tonight, Chris. Great gin. And, I think we're showing already as we go through these tonight just how incredibly different they all are, which is super exciting. So, yeah, thank you very much. So I think what we're going to do next is we're going to go to Marlborough and go to Ben. And it's actually quite nicely put, because Ben, I think you've got the same tonic water. We need Kina Fina as well. So where's Ben? Thanks, Chris.
Hey.
Cool. Hey, welcome. So now
Hey,
we're
guys.
roots in Marlborough.
What a pleasure it is to have everybody all together like this. It's just fantastic. So big shout out to Glengarry for arranging such a wicked meeting. Obviously my name's Ben. I'm co-owner and distiller at Elemental Distillers located in Marlborough. We've got a quite a unique distillery that we've built out of 3 upcycled shipping containers. Our distillery and our gin is all built around 2 big ethoses we're very passionate about. One of them is sustainability and the other one is traceability. So we've just been open. We just completed our first year, not long around the time that we all hit lockdown, which was obviously a pretty interesting first year to trade any business. Luckily, we all had gin to fall back on, and thank you for everyone for buying gin during lockdown, because that really helped every single one of us. So we produce Roots Marlborough Dry Gin, which you've got the little bottle sample of there. And Roots is basically, first and foremost, a London dry gin, which means within its own loose category that no matter what other botanicals we put in the gin, juniper is the most dominant, juniper is the hero. And I kind of also, stand by Chris's comment about, gin, the only thing that gin has to define it is its namesake, which means juniper. So, it's very important to us to make sure that our gin tasted like juniper first and foremost. We've only got 6 botanicals in our gin. I'm a very big believer in less is more. And I'm a local Marlborough lad, born and raised, but I spent 14 years in the spirits industry in the UK and Europe. And this is also a bit of a double play on me coming back to my roots to set up and run my own distillery and represent my own brand instead of the many other brands that I've represented over my time overseas. So it's very much an exciting kind of position to be here, chatting to everyone and sharing my own gin. Our gin is basically outside of the juniper, which is the only ingredient that you can't get naturally in the Southern Hemisphere. Every other botanical comes from New Zealand. Of our 6 botanicals, 4 of them are wild foraged, and every single one of them is seasonally sourced. And again, I absolutely agree with Chris saying that it's very difficult to make any business financially viable for using completely seasonal ingredients. But we're doing our best, and as such, we're quite a small yield distillery, but we're very proud of the results. So if you're trying it neat, it's definitely much more of an earthy, vegetal and spice-driven gin. Of our 6 botanicals, we have a beautiful wild North Macedonian juniper that we purchase and import direct from a father and son business in East Sussex in England, who literally hand forages it with local farmers in North Macedonia about 5 times a year. This beautiful juniper is just massively full of resin and unctuous and creates an incredible sort of backbone to our entire recipe. Outside of that, we've got coriander seed from the Hawke's Bay. We have grapefruit, which we get from a single grower in Gisborne, which we then coordinate a single weekend when we have 570 kilograms of grapefruit shipped to us within 36 hours of the trees. And then we host an event here at the distillery with local volunteers called the Great Annual Grapefruit Appeal. And they all bring their favorite peelers and their friends and their family, and they all help us peel it in one single sitting and one single afternoon, so that we can have our grapefruit as fresh as possible. The remaining flesh, because we just use the zest, the remaining flesh goes through a local gelateria, and they juice it into a gin and grapefruit sorbet, so that we've still got the traceability behind our byproducts. Outside of the grapefruit, we've got 3 more ingredients that create a bit more of a unique kind of story for us and a bit more of a New Zealand story. We also use kawakawa, but our kawakawa, instead of being the leaf, is actually the berry, which is quite a unique little fruit that only grows around 2 months of the year, same period as sort of around Christmas, around December, January. And when it's, we work with a freelance forager based in the Kapiti Coast who delivers the majority of the bulk for us. We house dehydrate it, and it basically gives out this unique spiced ginger fruitcake and slight cola nut aromatic. It's an absolutely incredible botanical that I'm very excited about. And then the remaining 2, we've got an organic Motueka hops, which we also get as a pure cone straight out of drying and vintage over in Nelson. And then the last ingredient is a little bit of an anti-establishment ingredient, and that is gorse flower, which again, we obviously forage, and we work in this incredible pine plantation here in Marlborough with beautiful views over the Waidau Valley. And again, we work with 30 volunteers that we throw out every year as a big annual event. We drag a local chef up the hill with us to do some brisket and some smoked pork belly. And people help us pick gorse flowers for a day. And we get them up there with the local four-wheel drive club, and everything that we seem to do and collaborate with in order to be able to source our botanicals at its peak freshness is all about the community, is all about collaboration. And while it does make our product quite difficult to scale up, at the same time, it becomes an absolute passionate labour of love. So those are the unique stories behind our single expression and everything that we've done in the last year to be at this point.
What a great story. Thank you very much for sharing. It sounds, we've got some people on tonight who have definitely helped you with all of those processes.
Yeah, there's a few faces I recognise, yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of people from Marlborough, which is great. And yeah, some wonderful comments. It does taste really, really good. Love it. Just one question that came through there before, the difference between a London Dry and a Plymouth.
And a Plymouth. So London Dry is not actually geographically specific. It's just a very popular phrase that came out of a very old period in history when there used to be a very large number of distilleries based out of central London and the capital of the UK. But the truth is London Dry is not geographical at all. And you might see more and more craft gins coming on the market that are proudly putting words to that effect on their bottle to at least tell the consumer that juniper is still a dominant botanical in their gin, and therefore it's still going to taste like gin when you actually drink it. There are great distilleries popping up in Japan that are doing some incredible things. One of them is the Kyoto Distillery, so they put Kyoto Dry Gin on their bottles. And on ours, on every label, we have Marlborough Dry Gin, again, as a bit of an indicator that, yep, juniper is still absolutely the hero, but is a little bit more of, a story of our own sort of provenance. So, yeah, a good question.
Cool. And your tonic mixer, you've gone with the Quinafina as well, yeah?
Yeah. So Quinafina is, and again, there's just so many tonics on the market now, and part of it is almost as confusing, but also as exciting because there are so many variables. The difficulty is always trying a new gin, but you try it with a new tonic and you don't know which one it is that you're actually liking or disliking. Quinafina is a fantastic base tonic. It's all about the quinine first and foremost. It's quite dry, doesn't have a massive amount of viscosity or thickness to it. And it does help the gin to speak a bit more. So I've been quite a fan of Quinafina, but at the same time, I know a lot of people are using East Imperial. They do some fantastic expressions. I'm also quite a fan of the yuzu because I think, again, the citrus in the yuzu speaks very well with the grapefruit and our own gin, sorry. So yeah, horses for courses, but yeah, I do think Quinafina is a fantastic base tonic to use. Yeah,
we're very lucky tonight. We've got both, so we can play around and see which one we prefer. And I think, that's a great thing. We've got so many great distilleries now in New Zealand, but also we've got these beautiful mixes. And, as someone said before, has it been the change in gin that's available or the change in mixes? And, I think it's both. And I think both are very valid parts of the industry.
Oh, massively. And there's a lot of different cues that you're starting to see, and the amount of people, and I'm sure a lot of the other guys have had the same experiences where you find people who said that they thought they didn't like gin, and they come and they do a tasting with you and they go, gosh, this is actually really nice. And it kind of opens up a whole new world for them. And not only is it the gins that are changing, but it's the tonics. There's very few alcoholic serves in the world that are more consigned to a single mixer than gin was, and trying to get people to realize that gin can be consumed and enjoyed with more than just tonic is sort of one of the first big hurdles that we've got to combat with. But at the same time, it's so versatile a category that we're getting all sorts, and so there is a flavor hopefully for everybody. But the other thing is, a lot of people might start noticing that the alcohol levels in all of the craft gins are much higher. And that's one of the biggest shifts that has happened in I think, a market point of view. We no longer have these very low, simple, diluted 37.5 Gordons or 40% even Tanqueray or Bombay. Now the crafties are at least 43, working up. Ours is a bold 45. It costs each of us producers more to bottle it at a higher strength, but the alcohol is the bit with the flavor. And even if you drop it by 2 or 3%, you're dropping all of that flavor. And therefore, almost, it doesn't matter what mixer you choose. So there's a lot to be said for a higher strength and a higher sort of profile to be able to come through as well.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Hey, thanks very much for sharing your story. And I think one of the comments that we had down the side there was the way that you've evolved the community. And I think I need to know when that orange peel's happening, because I think you've just got another helper.
The grapefruit appeal is actually happening next month.
Sorry.
So it's that'll be put publicly on our subscribers group and all of our social media. I think in the next week. We usually fill it in about 4 hours, so get in there quick. That's for sure.
I will do. I need a trip out of Auckland.
Good on you. Any excuse. Pleasure.
Oh, very good. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. So we will move on from there. So what we're going to do now is we're moving folks to flight 2, and we're moving now to Reefton. And I think with Reefton, who have we got joining us there with Little Biddy? So we've got Nick.
Yep.
Nick there somewhere.
Hello everyone. Nice to be here with everyone this evening, all the way from the sunny West Coast.
We're actually doing a real tour of New Zealand, aren't we?
Absolutely. It's quite a few nice spots to make a bit of a road trip, perhaps a bit of a gin tour around New Zealand might be in order for a few of your customers.
Maybe for some of our staff as well.
Yes, sounds good. We'd love to host everyone at the Salador in Reefton. Yeah, so I guess I'll start by maybe introducing myself. My name's Nick. I'm the head distiller at Reefton Distilling Co. I guess the business, the distillery started in Reefton because of our founder and chief executive, Patsy Bass. She had a vision for a business back in 2017. At the time, she didn't actually know it was going to be a distillery. And she had the vision of setting up something on the West Coast where she was born to create jobs for local people and also a tourist attraction in a small regional town. For those of you who are not familiar with Reefton, it's a small old gold mining town on the West Coast that was kind of established in the mid-1800s, sort of founded on gold from settlers from Europe. And Patsy being born there back in the sort of 70s, wanted to see her hometown thrive with this little business. And after talking to locals and people on the street, that's what they would like to see in a small town like Reefton. The idea of something that would capture a really unique part of the West Coast that people could take away with them was the whole idea. So here we are 2.5 years later, and it's going really well, and employing more and more locals every day and trying to source all of our ingredients, all of our skills locally as well. So it's really got a positive flow-on effect for the local community. And yeah, tonight we're going to share our Little Biddy Gin Classic with you. So hopefully you've got that in front of you there. Our Little Biddy Gin uses 13 different botanicals. 5 of them are locally foraged for the morning that we distill. So we use local rainforest botanicals of the West Coast. Those are things like Horopito, Tarata or native lemonwood. We've also got things in there like Douglas fir. That's not a native plant, but it's a local plant. And a little bit of a nod to the history of Reefton is that was a pine tree that was brought to the region by those first gold miners. We've also got Toa, which is in a sort of subalpine shrub that grows quite prolifically around Reefton, and that gives it some beautiful sort of West Coast resin notes coming through for the gin. And then we've also got Rimu, which is one of our native conifers. So it's all building on that beautiful warm resin flavour that sort of starts with the juniper, of course. So our gin isn't a London dry gin. I sort of describe it more of a New Western style gin, where juniper isn't really the front and centre of the flavour profile. You're kind of getting a lot of sort of fresh citrus coming through first, and that's coming from some of our natives, such as lemonwood, as well as the local Douglas fir, but also the lemon peel that is distilled into this gin as well. So that's kind of the first hit of the flavour that you're getting. It then kind of moves into a really rich bit of pine resin with that juniper in the background there, then moving into some really nice sort of complex spice. So that's coming from Horopito, but also some of our classic gin botanicals that are in there, such as cassia, just kind of like a sweet cinnamon sort of flavour, as well as cardamom seeds, which give it a real sort of burst of that sort of complex spice towards the finish. And it's quite a sweet finish too, coming from some of those traditional spices like angelica and licorice root there too. Sort of designed to be drunk with a classic sort of tonic, something that's not flavoured like some of the other distillers have been talking about. We kind of want to let our botanicals really do the talking. It's quite a botanical gin with 13 botanicals in it. So something like a Fever Tree Classic Indian Tonic, or what we're mixing it with tonight, S. Imperial's Burma Tonic. It's really nice options for this gin. And a lot of people who come into our Salador really just like it just on its own, just over ice, which was, I guess, a nice bonus too. Certainly designed to be drunk with a mixer, but it makes a really nice sipping gin as well, just over a couple of large cubes of ice. So pretty versatile. And for those of you that really do enjoy a garnish, it's really, really nice with just a really thick slice of green apple. The green apple is kind of a nice neutral contrast of the complex of warm resin spices that are in this particular profile of the Little Biddy Gin Classic. And it's really good at the end because the apple kind of takes on the character of the gin, and you end up with a nice little healthy piece of apple to finish off your J&T. So that ends up being a bit of a bonus there too. Yeah, so happy to take any questions there if you're...
Yeah, it's fantastic. There's a really nice sort of, I was getting like a very vanillan characteristic to it. Like it's got that lovely sweetness there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, really different to anything that we've tasted. And I sort of wonder, is that vanillan bit coming from the cinnamon or coming from...
Yes, that's quite a prominent, especially towards the finish. It's one of those sort of notes that you end on, that sort of cassia bark with sweet cinnamon. So that would probably be what you'd be describing as vanilla-like, I would say. Yeah.
Mm. And Little Biddy, where does that name come from?
Yes, that's a question we get asked quite often. Little Biddy. So I guess Patsy's ambition about sort of tying all the local history as well as our native botanicals into these products. The gin was named for one of the very first female gold prospectors on the West Coast. So her name was Bridget Goodwin. She came from Ireland, sort of immigrated from Ireland in the 1860s, sort of arrived up at the top of the South Island there at Nelson Port, made her way down to the West Coast, where she spent the last sort of 50 years of her life in Reefton. And she was only 4.5 foot tall, so a very, very short lady for the day. But she was tough as nails and out doing, being a very pioneering lady for the time. So she did a lot of things that weren't seen as a very ladylike thing to do back in the 1800s. So she panned and mined for gold, worked very hard every day for her money, lived out of wedlock with 2 men, wore pants, things that women weren't allowed to do back in the 1800s. So we kind of like to think of our founder, Patsy, as a bit of a gutsy lady who took a chance on a small regional town and started a small business that's starting to flourish and employ local people. So we're kind of aligning, very sort of strong, bold woman. So we wanted to honour Little Biddy, someone who on the West Coast is quite famous in our gin. So locals are very, very proud of it.
Rightly so, great story. And you've got some interesting people that go out and forage for you.
We do. So we're very lucky enough in Reefton to have some members of the community who are big helps of ours. 2 local guys who are identical twins. Your customers may have seen in some of our marketing. Their names are the Mackay twins, Nigel and Stephen. So they're 72-year-old twin brothers. They look exactly the same. They dress identically every day as well. So it's not marketing, that's just who they are. They've lived in Reefton their whole lives and worked in the forestry around Reefton their whole lives. So they're very much wealths of knowledge in terms of the natural history and the gold mining history of the area. So they actually told us about the story to do with Little Biddy and really informed some of the brand stories for our products. So we're very lucky to have them. And they are the guys who go out with some of our other team members to forage for botanicals for our distillation. So we're very lucky, and we like to, this sort of part of their having, because they've worked in the forestry, they wanted to sort of try and capture that forest in a product. So that's how it came to be gin. So, yeah.
Cool, very good. Yeah, the first time I heard the story of Reefton and Little Biddy and the whole thing, it just captivated me. And then I took a sip of the gin, and I've been sold since then. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, like when people actually come to visit Reefton, customers often spot them on the street because they're very active members of the community, and they love helping out pretty much everyone in the town by mowing all the lawns, the local sports clubs, and helping their friend out in the secondhand stores. So when people see them, they're quite shocked. They thought they were actually actors, but no, they're very much real people, and yeah, they love welcoming people to the town. So yeah, hope you guys get a chance to come and see us down on the West Coast.
Yeah, it's such a New Zealand story as well. It's great.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we're very proud of them and the whole Little Biddy gin too.
Yeah, you should be. That tastes really, really good. And I think, what we've seen tonight with all of these gins so far, and, we've got 3 more to go, but just how different they all are. And I think that's what's so exciting with gin. And
Definitely.
you know, from a retail point of view, we've been noticing for quite a while now, gin's gone from being sort of something where people bought a bottle of gin and you had a bottle of gin at home to a little bit more in a way like the single malt category, where, you know, you collected them because they're all so different. And
That's right. Yeah.
now people collect gin, and it's great. You know, you need a single malt cabinet and a gin cabinet. Perfect.
Yeah, I guess there's so many different interesting plants and sort of fruits and botanicals in the world, so that really creates a scope for huge diversity in the spirit category. So it's one of the more, especially for me, I studied botany and chemistry at university. It's kind of a very pure expression of those two things. So yeah, it's very, very interesting category of spirits.
And sorry, the garnish recommendation with that gin?
Yes, so we do recommend a slice of green apple, but just a classic, any sort of style of apple is really good. Something that's just got quite a neutral sort of flavour, so you can really just get the flavour of the botanicals that are distilled into the gin. It's nice with, you know, your classic lemon, but because it's got quite a citrus forward, it just tends to overwhelm the rest of the profile. So something neutral like green apple is ideal. And if you don't have any green apples to hand, then just a little bit of cucumbers is always a nice way to freshen it up a little bit too.
Cool. Yeah, we've just had a note that the apple also tastes great at the end of the drink too. So perfect.
Yeah, that's one of our favourite things about the apple. You get to eat a gin infused piece at the end.
Perfect. Hey, thanks, Nicholas. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us and sharing that story. So actually a nice segue from a mention of single malts to our next gin, because we're moving to Thomson Whisky and to Victor Gin. And Matt, have we got you there somewhere?
No, we've got Sam tonight.
Oh, sorry, we've got Sam.
Oh, you're
I
right.
knew that, Sam, didn't I? But still a really nice segue, you must say.
Absolutely. Couldn't have lined that up better. Matt was desperate to be here this evening, but he's on a mildly secretive call to the UK at the moment. So he's
exciting. Hey, Sam, just before you get started, we've had a request that we reveal what the perfect garnish is at the beginning of your talk so that people can get ready.
Awesome.
So what garnish do we need?
So I would recommend anything citrus, anything at all. I'm going with orange tonight. And our tonic is going to be the Burma Tonic or the Uzu. If you have it there, that's perfect. But the Burma is fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, we have the Uzu. So
beautiful. There we go. So I am Sam from Thomson Whisky and Victor Gin, and like a few others this evening, I got my start in the industry working for Liz at Glengarry's. I was an ardent fan of spirits and learnt a huge amount about the industry in general while I was there. But while I was there, I was also working as the spare pair of hands for Thomson Whisky, and I sort of did that for about 6 or 7 years, and then had the joy of going full-time with them a couple of years ago now. Delivery driver, merchandiser, part-time distiller and sales. So it's a little bit of everything. The joys of a small team, you wear many hats. So this evening, we're not talking about whiskey though. We're talking about our lovely little Victor Gin here. The key reason that we've talked about Thomson Whisky though is that we've brought a little bit of that whiskey ethos to our gin. Typically with a whiskey, yes, it has complexity, but normally when you taste it, you get 3 or 4 big, bold primary characters straight off the bat. And we kind of wanted to bring that to our gin, as opposed to having a real sort of melody of 30 or 40 different botanicals all vying for space. We wanted to create big, bold flavors when it came to our gin. So we've opted for 5 botanicals: juniper, lemon, lemongrass, cardamom, and coriander. And if you want to break it down even more simplistically than that, you've got juniper up the front and a huge amount of it. And then in behind that, a real heart of citrus. So lemon and lemongrass. And then underpinning all of that, you've got that spice coming through. And you've seen that from a few people this evening. And the reason for that, I believe, is that citrus forward gins like this tend to become almost coilingly oversweet if there isn't some sort of deeper, bassier note there. And that cardamom, what it does is it balances it out and dries it off. So while you do have this beautiful fruity center palate, there is that spice sort of drying off the finish. So hopefully it's achieved some sort of balance in that regard. Now, the reason that we started this is we started at the company back in 2009. So it's been coming up on 11 years now. And back then there were sort of maybe a half dozen distillers in the country. And Matt's mission really was to make a whiskey that he could be proud of, and one that he'd be happy to drink, because looking around the country, there wasn't really that option. And so started the company for that purpose. And we've sort of taken that ethos to our gin as well a few years later. But it's been really cool seeing this journey in the industry of, a decade ago, there being a handful of distilleries, to last year, and a few of the other distillers this evening were there. We all had the joy of going to Te Papa for the National Spirits, the New Zealand Spirit Awards at Te Papa. And represented on that evening were about 60 odd distilleries. And just the growth of the industry over the last decade has been phenomenal to watch. And especially as someone that got into this through a passion for what's in our glasses this evening, it's been phenomenal to have this variety of choice. Seeing people like Cardrona pop up making whiskey as well, like it's this growth and this excitement that I think hopefully you as the consumer can feel as well. So I'm going to pop away for 2 seconds because I don't have my tonic. It's just in the fridge behind me. Sorry. Perfectly set up apart from the tonic. Sorry. So I'm going to make a wee little gin and tonic here, using the Burma in this instance, but the yuzu is phenomenal. So what we like to do with our gin is add a little bit of bitters to it. So yes, absolutely, have it however you enjoy. If you want to have it neat, if you want to have it just with tonic, and you want to experience the full flavour, fantastic. Excuse the lack of measurement here, I like mine a little bit heavier. Then like to add a little dash of bitters to it. A little pinch of salt. Your tonic in there. Wedge of orange and a kaffir lime leaf as well. Those aren't necessarily hanging around the house, but if you do have them, they make a phenomenal garnish. The reason we have them is because we make kaffir lime gin, so we're lucky that we always do have them around. This is one of my favorite drinks. This is how I like to enjoy it. But one of the questions I get asked all the time is, how should you drink it? The answer is however you enjoy it. If you're not enjoying the drink in front of you, you're doing it wrong. I've got friends, and it really pains me to say this, but it ties in with what I've just said. I've got friends that they'll drink gin with Fanta. They love to call it ginta. Not recommending you go down that line, but if you enjoy it, if you're drinking it to enjoy, then you're doing it right. That's really the main thing I'll communicate this evening. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic mix there, Sam. Thank you for sharing that. Question, where does the name Victor come from?
No, the name Victor comes from Matt's grandfather, Victor. Coincidentally, they also live on Victor Street. So maybe the grandfather never existed and it's all a lie, but the official line is that it's named after his grandfather.
Cool, excellent, very cool. And salt in there? So
I was down in Wellington. Love for the Wellingtonians here. Absolutely love your city. Some of the best bars I've ever been into. Any Aucklanders, block your ears, please. And fantastic little bar down there that's escaping me, the name of it. They made a little balsamic reduction, and just the tiniest little hint of that in a cocktail added like an umami character, which suddenly it was this eureka moment for me, that realizing that with food, we try and balance all these flavors. We bring in acidity, we bring in, umami, we bring in salt, and you try and find that balance. And of course, for years, you've been preaching to me that drinks are about balance as well. And suddenly having this little tiny hint of umami or salt, and I'm not talking, you don't want a salty drink. It's almost like a tiny little tip of salinity in the middle of the palate. And it just adds another dimension to the drink.
I think you've just told everyone the key to getting your product over the line with Glengarry. It's all about balance.
Other producers, block your ears.
Has been for years. Doesn't matter what it is, has to have balance. Key thing in any drink. Hey, thanks, Sam, very much. Really, really interesting gin to taste, and again, just another expression, which is really cool. And I've got the yuzu tonic here tonight, and it's gone really, really well with that. So cool. And we've had lots of comments on needing to go get some bitters. Not sure about the Fanta. But the balsamic reduction, maybe going to try that, and lots of people running to the kitchen to get some salt.
Tiniest little pinch. We're not talking a full teaspoon or anything.
Cool, excellent. So we're actually going to stick with a bit of a whiskey theme here, and we're going to head down south and head to the Cardrona Distillery. So Kenny, have we got you there somewhere?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good.
Good evening, everyone.
So tell me, you've coped with the snow?
We have coped with the snow. We've even had a little bit of fun with the snow at Wanaka level just a couple of days ago, last Monday. It snowed in town, which is great. We had to close for half a day due to too much snow on the Cardrona Valley Road, and we were snowed in. So yeah, we didn't open until 3 o'clock.
Yeah, it's
much disappointment to us. We went instead and did a little bit of bottling and labeling, which we had plenty to do.
So I mean, it's looked absolutely picturesque down there, but lots and lots of work for the poor vineyards, though. Exactly the wrong time for that amount of frost. But it looks like they've all worked very hard to try and look after their poor little buds.
Yeah, the frost fighting efforts they kicked off pretty quickly. The snow thankfully didn't stick around for too long, but we weren't expecting. You always expect it in Wanaka. They say never plant anything. I suppose this doesn't really apply for wines and grapes because they're already in the ground. But never plant anything until after Labor Day or after the last snow off Mount Roy. Yeah.
These spring frosts are getting more common, unfortunately, and a little bit more severe. So yeah. Anyway,
Liz, this is great. I'm absolutely in love with this Zoom conversation. It's probably my first successful attempt at zooming into a conversation. I feel antiquated and old, but I do love talking to people now that I realize I can do it from anywhere in the world, from my kitchen table, even better. And I'm loving listening to all the distillers' roots. You guys are fantastic. I'm just I want to come and visit. I want to come and see it. I've seen from the outside on all the images, and I'm mad keen to come and see Reefton as well. That's put on my list, especially after you guys visited. And nice of you, Nick, to leave our little bottle of just hatched sitting in the. I noticed everything. Tonight I'm going to we'll talk about the Source Pure Cardrona Gin, which is the gin offering from Cardrona Distillery. I always like to remind people that not a gin distillery as such, but more a single malt distillery, making delicious single malt spirit. And then with that, we've got opportunity to kind of do with as we wish. It's a very versatile spirit. Obviously, new make into barrel with lots and lots of character, and then producing the single malt spirit for the Reid. There we go. Which then can be utilized and transformed into the Rose Rabbit liqueurs or the gin. We like at Cardrona Distillery to focus upon spirit. It is something that we do incredibly well. It's something that we do as well, which is exciting. Noticing a trend around the globe of, and even across, and it was mentioned earlier, the likes of Berclady, who are using their kind of botanicals from all around the region. But I remember, in visits, you see these great big blue drums that come all the way from Germany, which have their spirit. We make our spirit on site. We do that using malted barley, which makes us very, very proud. And we go from grain to glass. That's the technology that we're proud of. The gin that we're tasting, the Source Pure Cardrona Gin, is 47% alcohol. It's our single malt spirit that's been distilled to above 95% pure ethanol. With that, we get not neutrality, we get a little bit of flavor in the background, which is kind of our unique selling point, our little sweet banana lollies and caramel and toffee and banana lollies, or banoffee pie, as often people say. We put then our spirit, we distill it through juniper, coriander seed, angelica root, lemon peel, orange peel, and rosehip, in a typical London dry style, I suppose, as well, except we do macerate some of that spirit, some of that coriander and juniper overnight, just to give it a little bit of a head start. Tonight's garnish, we're going to go with a little touch of Central Otago thyme, that nice woody little thyme that we find all around us whenever we're walking, and a little bit of Central Otago, no, not really, a little bit of ginger, just for giggles, and we're not using tonic. I swayed away from the old G&T because we're towards the end of our tasting, and nice to bring a little bit of spice into our lives. I decided to opt tonight for the East Imperial Thai ginger, Thai ginger ale. So I'm going to make the drink in front of us, because, well, why not? Magic of technology and where we are. I've just been tasting the spirit by itself, and I recommend that you do that. 47% alcohol and full of delicious flavor. A nice healthy pour. That's why the ginger, not tonic. Ah, you got me, I see. I also wanted tonight to be a little bit cheeky and showing off our wonderful branding. I'm going to put this behind us for a second and open the lid on what came into store today. 1st of October, it marks the beginning of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And with Breast Cancer Awareness Month, every year for the last 4 years, we've launched a pink gin. Not so much a rhubarby sweet flavored gin. We make the Source gin, and we're very reluctant to change the recipe ever. But to make our pink gin, we have a little marriage with Felton Road. We place this into 2 Felton Road Pinot Noir barrels for just 5 months. This year we have named our gin Marina, which is the it's probably backwards when we're looking at it on Zoom, but the marriage angle. We were wanting to gift to breast cancer awareness a something special via the bra fence at the entrance to the distillery. So every year we give $5 from every bottle sold to that wonderful cause. Time, always with time, give it a smack, be brutal, give it a little wake, and then when in the glass, I like to leave it proud. It's not there to infuse with the spirit. It's there for the sensation, the nose, and the smell of the spirit. I was in love with this drink as soon as I made it. The ginger just ignites and makes for a really, really rich, savory drink. I think our gin kind of suits that savory end. I'm never really one for tonic when I'm drinking it myself. I tend to go towards apple juice. I tend to go towards the kind of Tom Collins. I tend to go also towards weird and wonderful garnishes like cornichons and pickled onions and such. I hope you like that little mix. It's certainly a fun one for me. The distillery, we've been 7 days a week consistently open ever since the level 2 of it all. I know COVID was a bit of a terrifying time for everybody. We quickly jumped on the Let's Make Sanitizer train, as so many of the distilleries who are featured tonight did, giving away sanitizer to the entire community. I still think that as part of that, we perhaps even saved the South Island from the horrors of COVID-19, COVID-free since 1982. We've been enjoying the visits from our friends from all around the country, and it's amazing. More and more people have been telling me, oh, I've never been further than Wellington, or I've never been past Picton, and to see the pretty much entirety of Auckland and Wellington and beyond coming to visit Central Otago at the moment, it gives me a really amazing sense of community and camaraderie. We're seeing huge numbers of visitors through our door. We're seeing a passion for the spirits that we're creating, and long may it last. I know it's a tough time for everyone, but in the same time, we're quite resolute at making the best of a tricky situation. And I think Kiwis, we're in a better position than anyone else in the world. And I count myself as a Kiwi. I've been fairly well welcomed into the country now.
Oh, hey, that drink's fantastic. I think you know, you can probably tell by some of my comments tonight that I absolutely love baking. And when I tasted the gin, it was a real sort of sweetness and almost a sort of vanillian character there, and got a lot of that lemon peel and rosehip, and then added in the ginger. And you know what it reminded me of? Is a really nice ginger crunch.
Oh, stop it. Delicious.
I know. It's just like liquid ginger crunch.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm loving it.
I might need to try the two together. I mean, imagine that. Hey,
fresh.
Thank you very much, Kenny, for taking us through that. Just on your new gin you've released today, we, of course, have stocked that before, and we'd love to, of course, again this year. So for those who are interested in that, we'll let you know when that's in store at Glengarry.
Yeah, Pat's been with you already, and I know he's got your order. We literally launched and sent from the warehouse today to all our clients. No doubt it will be with you and on your shelves tomorrow morning. We like to do things. We like to do things on the day. We like to get the kind of the pressure on the team as well when we do release a new thing. And look, this one, 790 bottles have been made. This is our first time co-launching with our British team. So we had bottled, labeled and sent to them about a month ago from one other barrel. But this is two barrels married together. Get the Marena connection. Wanting to show that and I think as well it's nice to educate in the way of marriage. Often in the whiskey world, people instinctively say blended, and they talk about how blended this and in the single malt industry we're reluctant to say the word blended, as it kind of has different connotation. We're always inclined to direct people towards marriage, but this is exactly that, a little marriage of Felton Road and Cardrona Distillery first and foremost, but then two of the beautiful Quercus rubra or red oak Felton Road barrels, 790, and I know that because of the visitor numbers that we're seeing at the moment at the distillery, it's best to get that order in very, very quickly. I just, even through the cellar door today, I thought I had brought enough. We sold out of the 50 bottles that I brought in with me this morning. So yeah, that's exciting.
Great success, and absolutely, you've answered that question.
Yeah, and I come with a lot of baggage.
An absolutely wonderful cause that you've made that for. So thank you very much for supporting that, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, hey, I'm loving it, Liz. Thank you. Thanks, Glengarry, and thanks T as well. You're a great organizer.
Oh, he's absolutely brilliant. He can organise me. I mean, that's you know, that's no mean feat.
Herding cats.
Yeah, she was here before. Right, we've got our last gin for tonight, and we're going to move to Scapegrace, and I think we've got Mikey with us. Mike, have we got you there somewhere?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Choice. Yeah, seems to be cutting. Perfect. Cool. It's cutting out a little bit on my side, but man, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm just filling in for Mark. Funnily enough, he is probably, well, I hope he's had a baby, his 4th baby. But today is the due date. So yeah, I was lucky enough to work with Scapegrace on the Scapegrace Black project. So yeah, got a few little tasting notes to kind of talk through and kind of give you an idea of where it all came from and the excitement behind it. To give you a bit of a background, I'm a bartender in the industry, so it was quite a fun project to work with, and that's kind of how the focus went forward.
Cool. Hey, Mikey, I don't have I've got a picture here of your flavour wheel for black. I know that Mark was intending to show that, so it's not a particularly good render of it on my screen, but if you want me to show that while you're talking, let me know.
Oh yeah, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, that'd be cool, for sure.
Let me see if I can bring it up and we can zoom in on it.
Yeah, that'd be wicked.
Cool, so you go for it and I will do that.
Yeah, choice. So, I mean, I was approached by the guys at Scapegrace about essentially creating a gin based around a color, I guess. Originally, it was just focused on how to understand how to create a black gin. And for me, the big focus personally was to make sure that we built up this beautifully naturally existing black product. So of course, everything goes into there as a natural extract or a natural steep. We'll cover that a little bit more. It's actually just a play on the classic Scapegrace. So it runs at about 41.6%. So the base, if you guys don't know too much about the Scapegrace classic itself, is lemon, orange, coriander, and cardamom focused. And then you've got those secondary botanicals of nutmeg, obviously juniper's relatively heavy on this too, angelica, licorice root, orris, cloves, cinnamon, and a slight clove note too. This is all our base spirit is all distilled, and the steep finish is done down in Kaiapoi in that giant John Doerr still, and we're doing around about a 24-hour maceration, 9.5-hour distillation, yielding around about 1,000 litre in the process. Everybody all right?
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit, but it's okay. Can you see that screen now?
Sorry, I can see your screen. Yeah.
Yep, cool.
Can everybody see the screen?
Yep. So Fran, you can see
cool.
all about black. Yep. Cool. Okay, keep going, Mikey. You're all good.
Cool.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah. So I guess the focus was to try to tie in these not only flavor profiles but also natural existing colors that build this black profile. So I kind of just roll through them. First and foremost, obviously, the gin itself is relatively different to what you'd expect with these flavor extracts built back on top of them. The first and foremost for me, the kind of cover is the kumara. So this is a purple flesh kumara, which brings this big waxy and kind of savory note to the textural elements of the gin. And it kind of really drives, again, like savory saltiness. It helps to build sweetness as well, as we kind of all know kumara brings in that natural sweetness. And this, alongside the pineapple, actually is that kind of power horse of sweetness in the top end. So again, no added sugar here, but this is all built naturally off the botanicals itself. Quite prominent on the nose, again, that like waxiness and almost dry salt. Next to cover. Again, really drives that balance. Its texture, its brightness, and it kind of brings through the whole package. So ties in really well, specifically along the resinous elements. So the likes of aronia and the juniper too. We're also using aronia berries. So if you guys ever heard of choke cherries or aronia itself, really kind of dry, resinous, think cherries or that kind of style, but big and dry and bitter as well. And this is a naturally red, but it does actually have this natural color change element in it as well that actually comes in almost around a purple format too. And it's actually one of the natural color changing elements throughout. But again, this is that workhorse alongside the juniper. So really big backbone. It helps to kind of bring a little bit of tropical, but also big kind of berries as well. It wouldn't be a black gin without having to put something blue in here, which obviously we're using butterfly blue pea as the element here. So a slight floral note. It's mainly used for its natural pigment. It's one of the only ways to get something that's royal blue, and it has that legitimate holding color. So this is done in the format of a steep, as is the aronia and the saffron as well. So try to get that natural flavor profile as much as possible. And then yeah, it kind of helps to bring a little bit of structure as well. So you'll notice it kind of builds a little bit more of the body, and it kind of helps to drive almost tea-like elements. Next to cover will be the pineapple. So I guess probably when we were constructing this, one of the things was in my head was this whole, like, yeah, it's got this color profile, yeah, it's got these beautiful flavors that tie everything together, but how is this something that people are going to want to drink? How's it different from anything else? And I always liken it to a desert island gin or something that's going to be crazy and different. So the pineapple is an element to kind of tie in a tropical piece, I guess. So think pina colada. It's a cheeky little tropical note. It also brings a really cool malic acid, which we'll cover in a second with the match, and it really helps to kind of drive that flavor profile through. So yeah, outside of that, we'll just give it a little taste, I guess, by itself. Full body, relatively natural, confirm the aroma is the kind of the piece here. It's also got this natural menthol note which comes through heavily aronia, for me anyway, and the juniper too. Again, through the middle, it's dry, resinous from juniper, slightly tropical, and this kind of tropical note rolls through the whole way through. And then that finishes like caged sweet potato. Super fun. So the match that you guys have, I think you just have the Scapegrace. Sorry.
Yeah, we've got the Burma or the East Imperial Tonic with it, which is fantastic. It actually really brings out that pineapple character.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I mean, the big reason of choosing the East Imperial Tonic water here is, well, first of all, because it's delicious, but second of all, because it has quite a high lemongrass the clay is green apple, and for that reason, we've got so many elements through here: the sweet potato, the aronia, the saffron, and the pineapple that fits so well with this kind of huge malic drive. Really nice kind of overall balance. Pretty different classic style gin and tonic, but a little bit tropical and fun.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit there, Mikey, unfortunately. I think.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's not a problem at all. But I think what we have got from that is just that earthiness and then that lovely sort of pineapple characteristic that comes through as well. And unfortunately, Mikey is cutting a bit out of it there. So, Mikey, perhaps just because I know the gin reasonably well. I guess one of the things that people would have noticed as you've added the tonic to it is that it does turn a really nice pink colour. And it actually was around the time that we opened our latest store in Grey Lynn that this black gin was released. And in fact, I remember, Scapegrace is from Grey Lynn, and actually where I'm based as well. And I bumped into Mark, and he lives just up the road. And he said that he was telling me about this black gin, and I said, look, we're about to actually open a new store. I said, I know you're not releasing it yet, but how about you come in, actually taste it with customers, and let's have a little bit of a preview of it in store. And it was fantastic. And one of the big questions that everyone asked him was, did you set out to make a pink gin? Because of course it turns pink once you add tonic. And you know, it was at that time where everyone was going crazy about pink gin. And you know, he stood there, and it was just a fantastic conversation, because he said the one thing that he never intended to do was make a pink gin. And it was all about actually what you've described, and what that wonderful picture that I finally managed to bring up showed, was all of the different aspects that actually go into actually making it black, and actually naturally making it black. Because I think it's worth noting that there are other black gins on the market, but they're not black naturally. And Scapegrace have actually managed to do it through using natural ingredients and making the product black without adding anything that we don't need in a drink. And the fact that it actually turned pink was a complete it wasn't really a mistake. It was just a nice sort of coincidence, because when the tonic was poured into it, it was like, it's pink. Well, that works from a marketing point of view as well. Excellent. We've got black gin and it turns pink. And, you know, I think Mark was then really quick to say, but that's not how we want to sell it, because it's not about the gimmick and the fact that it turns pink. It's about the quality of that gin. And I think you'll all agree it's absolutely fantastic. Did I sum that up, Mikey?
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, I think it's actually quite funny. As I said, I worked a lot on the formulation of it, and I kind of, from a bartending background, I understand the scientific process of the flavors themselves. And I definitely knew that there was going to be a color change, but I definitely neglected to tell Mark that that was going to be part of the actual process, because I was very much like, well, the Aronia specifically and the butterfly blue people are always going to have this acid solution kind of profile. They were always going to change color, but we never talked about it. And obviously that's separate. They had the experience when we first added tonic to it. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's funny. And I've found the higher the quinine level is in the tonic that you add, actually the brighter pink it goes.
Yeah. So I mean, the more neutral the ingredient, and the higher the quinine. Realistically, generally, it's not necessarily down to the quinine. It's more down to the products that are surrounding the quinine. So usually, if you have a high quinine content, you're having something with a lot higher citric or malic content. So higher pH level tonic. But yeah, it can go anywhere from grey to bright pink. Not something that we put lots and lots of thought into, though. As somebody who also questioned me was like, well, how do I get this pink? And I was like, I don't know. That's not the point. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. The point is to have a naturally black gin that tastes fantastic, and you've achieved that. So yeah, cool.
Oh, of course.
Hey,
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. That is unfortunately our last gin to taste tonight. I'm just looking at all my little bottles going, have we tasted them all? And unfortunately we have. So like to say, first of all, thank you to all of the distillers who have jumped online with us tonight. Been absolutely fantastic to have everyone in person, so thank you very much. Thank you also to the team around me at Glengarry for putting this together. It's been fantastic. I think the packs that everyone's received, the little booklets as well, it's been great. So Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who joined us. I hope you've learned a lot, and you know, certainly my takeout from this is just that there are so many different expressions to gin, and we need to keep tasting and trying new ones, because there's a new one every day, and these ones are fantastic. So thank you all very much. Hey, just one last thing. If you haven't booked tonight with your email address, do let us know what your email address is, because we will send out an email tomorrow morning which will have a link to this recording tonight, but we'll also have a wonderful offer for you around the gins that we've tasted, and a link to all of the gins, including that Cardrona one that we were talking about before. And that'll come out tomorrow night, but tomorrow during the day. But if we don't have your email address, obviously we can't send that through to you. The other thing is that we do have a wonderful collection of virtual tastings coming up, and you'll find them all up on our website, but did just want to highlight a couple of them to you. So we have a Burgundy tasting coming up on the 7th of October. So that's a comparison of 2 vintages. We've then got a Bordeaux one, a vertical of La Mission Haut-Brion, which is on the 15th of October. We then have Taylor's presenting from Portugal, and they're going to be presenting a tasting of all of their range, including 3 of their vintage ports, which have all been rated 100 points, which that's going to be an extraordinarily good tasting. And then actually on the 22nd of October, anyone who is vaguely into rosé, you need to join this, because we're going to do a rosé tasting, and we've got a whole lot of rosé producers from around New Zealand, but we also have 3 producers joining us from France. So we have Chateau L'Aube, Chateau Poèche, and also Mascaron also joining us. So really exciting to have a whole lot of French winemakers and New Zealand winemakers, and to be talking about rosé. So much to look forward to. So thanks very much for joining us, everyone, tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you online soon. Cheers.